doing a review on traveling internationally and studying abroad with Texas Southern University's Jessie H. Jones School of Business and the American Marketing Association. So here we are visiting the Forbidden City in Beijing. And here's a wonderful selfie I took on the Great Wall of China. The subway through Beijing. The Summer Palace. Here we're at the Terracotta Soldier Museum. This photo was taken in Singapore. And there's me walking through Little India. And here's a group photo of us all. I'll begin with letting you guys know a little bit about myself. I am 22 years old, and I'm also a spring 2015 graduate of Texas Southern University's Jessie H. Jones School of Business with a Bachelor's of Finance. I was one of 5 students to go on this trip with Dr. Delonia Cooley, and I had 2 reasons for wanting to go. My first being I've never been outside of the country before, so I wanted to expand my cultural horizon, as well as I haven't really participated in a lot of organizations throughout my entire undergrad program, so I wanted to have something extra to talk about if an employer was to ask me, well, why should we hire you? I'll begin with letting you guys know the 4 cities that we went to, as well as the companies that we visited while we were in these cities. I also talked to you guys about the landmarks that we visited, and then I'll go into what I liked and what I didn't like, the pros and cons, and I'll end it off with letting you know why I feel that you should go if you were ever given the opportunity. So as I said, the cities that we visited, we actually visited 4 cities. They were Beijing, Xi'an, Chengdu, and Singapore. In Beijing, we visited the 2 companies, ChinaSense and Tesla. ChinaSense is actually the company that sponsors this whole trip. They're the people who plans the trip out for us, and you guys know that Tesla, the car, we went to the dealership and we actually got to drive in the car, and well, not drive, but ride in the car, and they let us know a little bit about the company's background, as well as the guy who created the Tesla, and they let us know the differences between the prices in the US as opposed to the prices in China for the car. And while we were in Beijing, we got to visit the Great Wall, the Summer Palace, Tiananmen Square, and the Forbidden City, which was wonderful for me because for me, not only getting to go outside of the country, but for me to be able to visit one of the wonders of the world, it was amazing for me. The Great Wall was everything I wanted it to be. It was phenomenal. For those of you who don't know, the Great Wall separates China and Mongolia, and my whole Beijing experience, as far as the hotel and the environment and the city as a whole, I would probably give it, on a scale of 1 to 10, a 7. And the reason why I say that is because the air quality, as opposed to what I'm used to, was horrible. You guys know that China is very overpopulated, and the city Beijing in itself has a population of 5 million people, which is well over what I'm used to in Houston. There were no houses, only high-rise buildings and apartments. I did not see the sun the entire time I was in China. I mean, you can tell it was daytime, but the country is so polluted with the smog and then the emissions from the cars, because there's so many people that are driving, and then the cigarette smoke. It was just unbearable. I did notice something about China and their people. They rush everywhere they go. It's a lot of things that they do in their culture that I would not necessarily agree with as being an American, but I guess if that's what you're used to, then it's normal for you. So after we left Beijing, we took a high-speed train to Xi'an, which was my first time being on a high-speed train. So I kind of enjoyed that. We went to visit Xi'an's high-tech park, which was basically a showroom for the different companies that are operating through Xi'an. Companies that you guys are familiar with, such as Johnson & Johnson, are actually moving there. Samsung actually has a building there. Intel has a building there as well. And Xi'an is definitely a developing city. One thing I did notice about Xi'an, their electrical wires were literally hanging in the street to where a toddler could probably touch it if they jumped. I mean, of course it's not safe, but I didn't really understand the difference between a developed and developing country until I got to China and actually got to experience it for myself. And while we were in Xi'an, we actually got to visit the Terracotta Soldier Museum as well as the City Wall. That was an amazing experience for me because I've never really understood how much history China had. And there is a lot of history in China that I guess you wouldn't necessarily find in Houston. A lot of things that were new to me that actually inspired me to want to do different things and want to travel a little bit more. After we left Xi'an, we went to Chengdu, and there we visited the companies Camito Lady Shoes and an urban planning company. The Camito Lady Shoes actually is a factory, and they build certain shoes, such as Guess and Nine West. And what it were assembly lines, and it basically showed how when this person finishes this part, another person does this. And it's crazy because all the shoes that we have in our closets are basically made at the same place. The only thing that's different is the logo and the pricing. Although they may cost the same to make in China, it's so easy for you to just change the price on something as soon as it gets to the States, which I found to be very interesting. That day in particular, we also went to visit the planning company, which was a huge park, if you will, of apartment homes. And literally these buildings are 42 levels, 42 floors of homes, and that's how it is. Like, the most it's like things in China are stacked on top of each other. That's how overpopulated it is there. Honestly, it gave me a brand new appreciation for being in America, and it also gave me a lot of gratefulness, and it helped me learn how to humble myself, because things may be perfect for me, but for someone that probably looks at themselves just as good as I look at myself, they may not have everything I have, if that makes sense. Like, it made me appreciate everything that I have in the U.S. 10 times more, because things could be way worse. So while we were in Chengdu, we visited the Chengdu research base of giant panda breeding, which was pretty interesting for me because I love animals, and we got to see the baby pandas, the infants, as well. So Chengdu was the last city that we visited in China. After we left Chengdu, we flew to Singapore. Singapore, of all the cities that we visited, I would have to say was the most modern. Singapore was very clean. They had a lot of rules that people in America might not necessarily agree with. For instance, they are very strict about chewing gum. And while we were in Singapore, we visited Nalco, which was Ecolab, and Alcon. I'm not sure if you guys know what that is, but Alcon is the company that creates the contact solution and stuff like that. And while we were in Singapore, we also visited the Singapore Flyer and Sentosa and Merlion Park. I thought this experience overall was very rewarding because not only did I get to spend 2 weeks living how another culture lives, but I got to see a lot of historic places, and I got to see things that I wouldn't necessarily see if I was in the States. So out of all the companies that we visited, I would have to say Ecolab was my favorite company. Our speakers were very into what they were saying. They sound like they knew what they were talking about, and they were happy about their jobs, and they were definitely happy to tell us about what they did. Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't speak on it before. Ecolab, basically a sanitation company. They do everything from hand sanitizers to providing clean water whenever there is a natural disaster, which I think is pretty cool. So now I'll speak on my pros and cons about the trip. My favorite thing about the trip was definitely visiting the Great Wall. It was just amazing to me that that was built by hand, and for it to be so long and so ancient, and it's still standing. Like it was just, I can definitely understand why people say it's a wonder of the world. I get it. I mean, I guess that definition in itself was enough. The cons, I would have to say the food portion sizes. Okay, so everything is tiny. The hotels we went to, well, 2 out of the 4 hotels that we went to had twin size beds, which in America the two beds in the one room would be queen size or full size, but they were actually twin size beds. And it was interesting how all of their portion sizes for foods were so tiny. The plates were literally saucers, not necessarily full-size plates that we eat out of, which I'm kind of surprised that I even gained weight, but I guess that was from all of the rice and noodles that we ate out there. I definitely have a new respect for tea. I actually didn't think tea tasted like anything until I got to taste the different varieties of it. I do want to clear up this. Chinese food in China, or I'm sorry, food in China is nowhere near as modern as the Chinese food that you would find in a mall in America. It's two totally different things. And I thought I was going to be eating General Chicken when I got over there, only to find out that no, that's not what's going on. What I liked most about the trip was being able to step out of my comfort zone and live the way someone else lives. And as I said before, I definitely have a brand new appreciation for America and my life as a whole. And I honestly do appreciate even being given the opportunity to go to China and study abroad. If you are ever in a position to where you can go, I would suggest you go. Granted, although I don't see myself going back to China for a vacation, it was definitely something that I can take with me for the rest of my life, because it just showed me how different the world is once we step out of our own problems and our own homes. And as I said before, I appreciate being given the opportunity, and that's it. So yeah, once again, my name is Asia Davis. The entire name of the trip, if you want it, was Texas Southern Universities / AMA's China 2015. I enjoyed my trip, and I hope that if you get a chance to go, you will do the same. Thank you so much for watching, and have a good day.